I'm really happy to have Sam Most join us today for a conversation. We're celebrating 30 years at Larrabee Center, and Sam is one of our favorites, obviously. He's really the first one from the U. We always had a policy we wouldn't take people from the university itself because we thought they'd already had the residency experience and they didn't, need to come to me. But he was great, and he wanted to stay at the U, and they wanted him, and it just worked out. So we did that with the idea that he'd go back and join the university. We'll talk about all the milestones in a minute, but to put simply, Sam was the best. He came on board. He was obviously a great fellow. The thing I remember most is when I was playing U2 in the OR one day, and he said, "Oh, I'm the head of their fan club." And I said, "All right, not a bad thing. Give me some tickets, mister." But Sam joined us at U and did great there. And then for various reasons decided to move to Stanford. Mainly he didn't have a good cosmetic place to operate. And it's kind of still a problem. I can go into that later. But so I still remember when he wanted to go to Stanford, nobody wanted him to leave, of course, but he was looking at jobs. And one day I still remember it was lunch, and I got a call from Bill Fee, who was down there, and Bill's kind of a blunt guy. And Bill said, "Hey, is this Most guy any good?" And I said, "Yes, he did." And he said, "Okay, he's hired." And it's kind of that simple, big, tough interview. But then Sam has gone on to just do everything. He's been so helpful to me. We started Facial Plastic Journal, and he was like a co-editor and has published articles, and he's still involved in helping it in so many ways, and that's been great. He's obviously made a huge mark at Stanford. He's got his own fellowship, and it's very highly rated, and he teaches. I think the thing that's made me happiest not with Sam, because I would have been happy anyway, but the thing that made me most proud is he's really in the international and the plastic world made a name for himself. So many of our people kind of get narrow and they don't want to go out of their little circle of people. And Sam is, well accepted by the plastic surgeons, facial plastic surgeons, and international guys, and he does so many things, but particularly in rhinoplasty, the preservation rhinoplasty. There's lots of cool things going on in rhinoplasty. It's funny, when I trained in rhinoplasty with Jack Anderson and Joe years ago, we did closed rhinoplasty, cartilage splitting incisions, a little bit with a tripod, standard things with osteotomies and taking down humps and things, but nothing too fancy. And every time there's something new in rhinoplasty, I think, well, there's not much new. How much more can you do with the nose? And then, well, I think, a good example is Craig Murakami's cephalic turn-in. That's so obvious, but I never thought of it. and he did. And then, the lateral strut grafts, Jack Gunner invented those, and all kinds of things. But it's just amazing for us. What seems like it should be a simple operation, there's so many things you can do with it. And I think preservation rhinoplasty is especially interesting because I used to work a lot in Mexico, and the Mexicans were all into the coddle stuff, and we all kind of looked down on them, really, because they were doing push downs and let downs. And now we're all watching them to see how they do it because we think it's kind of cool. So anyway, that's that. So I'll turn it over to Sam a minute now. Sam, what do you remember of your days here? Anything good, I hope?
Absolutely. One of the things that I remember the most is just my first day. And I had just come off of the head and neck cancer service as a chief resident. So it was, you can imagine, very frenetic and stressful. And, I love Neil Futran to death. He's a good friend of mine, but, it's just like running around and doing free flaps and this. And I came into your office and we were doing, I think, a couple of deep plane lifts, and you had classical music playing and it was nice and calm, and your voice was very soothing. Actually, it was just like this whole different atmosphere. I said, this is going to be a really good year. I'm going to really enjoy working with my new mentor. And that was just the first day. I learned so much from you. But first I want to raise a glass to you. I got a little bourbon. I wish I could give you some.
I never give some, but I'll have time later.
But I want to raise a glass to you and congratulate you, on an amazing career. And I have to say that try to emulate, what you've done so many ways. There's no way. It's kind of like trying to be the Beatles. No one can be the Beatles again because they were so innovative and did so many things and broke ground. We're all just trying to do the best we can. But
you're too kind, but U2 is better.
Yes, I've got a story to tell you about that. Actually, that hasn't gone away. That's still really, I'm still a rabid fan. But anyway, I wanted to say that. I want to thank you for having me. There's a lot, of course, I could say about all your accomplishments, and you've really set the bar super high, and we've all tried to carry that torch the way you've lit it for us. So thank you.
Yeah.
But the fellowship was amazing. It was other than that initial shock of the change of pace, I learned just so much, both surgically, technically. But I think when I think about spending time with you, I think one of the things that you take for granted that you learn and pick up is just how to deal with patients with compassion and empathy. And because when you're a resident, I think that you just get caught up in trying to get through. I'm going to turn this way just a little bit because of that sunlight. But you just try to get through, and you don't really take the time, take a deep breath, and think about what you're doing and how you're affecting people. I think sometimes you get lost in it. At least for me, it was a lot of that. But I appreciate the whole experience.
Yeah. Well, it's one thing, I was thinking, I actually had to look up the dates. It's been like 20 years, and I can't believe it's been that long. But
Yeah.
remember, you had us over to your house for dinner towards the end of the fellowship, and your girls were little bitty, like, I don't know, like 4 and 6 or 2 and 4 or something,
Yeah, they were, I think, 2 and 4,
Yeah.
or 1.5 and 3.5.
or something like that. Yeah. Now they're all grew up. And I remember when you guys had me down to Stanford, it was so nice, and I still got that plaque on my wall. I put it up high so people think I went to Stanford. They don't. It just looks like. But
That's great.
I didn't do that on purpose. People think, "Hey, you went to Stanford?" No, not really. But nevertheless, maybe I could have. But that was such a nice visit, and some of the people in the audience were previous fellows, and but Dick Good, and drink a glass to him too if we find time. But Dick Good was such an amazing human being. He was. I would travel with him so much, and there's so many stories you could tell about Dick Good, and
Yeah.
like I do. But I miss him. He was such a wonderful guy, and he taught so many people over the years. And
Yeah.
he was there for a while when you first came, obviously. Because when I came down there, he was still there. How long?
Well,
Did you?
yeah, no, he was still active, and we kind of became friends over the years. And I was, unfortunately, I was in Russia when he passed. I remember hearing the news there. I was very sad about that. But up until just a few weeks beforehand, we'd gone out for drinks. We'd go out for drinks, and it was clear he was getting kind of frail. But he still enjoyed. So every 6 weeks or so, we'd go down into town. We live in the same area. He lives about 400 yards as the crow flies from where I live. And so I'd pick him up and we'd drive into town and we'd get some drinks and he'd tell me stories. And the funny thing about Dick was he knew more about the gossip in the department than I did. And he was retired.
Yeah, he was. I could tell you so many Dick Good stories. I won't tell them on this video, but he was an amazing guy and so creative and so smart. And remember when I did the little note flap, I had the dynamics down, and I still remember we used to have these Western section trilogic meetings. They don't have them anymore, but they were really good. I'm sorry they quit happening, because they'd have a Western section trilogic and they'd tag on a facial plastic the day before or something like that. And I was kind of excited about this flap because I kind of did some math, and I drew on the board, and Dick says, "Oh, that was like a note flap, like a 16th note or something like that." And he really named it. I never give him credit for it, but he was such a creative guy. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he did. He was doing sleep. He did middle ear mechanics research. He was actually pretty well known for that.
Yeah, he had a digital hearing aid company for a while, and yeah.
But it's really hard to believe this is actually this July is the 20-year anniversary for when I started the fellowship.
Yeah.
And I always remember because it was the 9/11 year.
Well, that's right.
That was my fellowship year, and that was it was obviously traumatic to all of us in a lot of ways. Our psyches would have that happen, but it was interesting period.
I remember Gregory who's now living with us. He's going to Claremont McKenna now, but he's home virtual now.
So you're on SoCal, that's great.
He was born that year, and that was the year we were all in Denver. I left early because the facial plastic meeting was before the AAO meeting, so 9/11. So I was home, but then all the other guys, Charlie Cummings and the guys that were there, I think they rented a bus or something and came back because the planes weren't flying, and they were stuck in, I think it was Denver that year. It was
Yeah, I was there. I was on a bus. I came back on the bus.
interesting. It's interesting how rhinoplasty's changed. You've been in the middle of it. I mean, tell me something about where you see rhinoplasty going. I know Charles well, Easton. I know all the players well, but it seems like you've on the U.S. side been kind of in the forefront of things more than most people.
Yeah, well, I think that it's interesting for me because my involvement with the Rhinoplasty Society, and again, I just want to say for the record that I did actively seek sort of gaining recognition for us representing facial plastic surgery across the board, and I'm happy you mentioned that because that's been my goal, but it's always been about advancing the academy, the Facial Plastic Surgery Academy, and I think that when I was part of that group, I went to a few international meetings where I started seeing these guys talking about preservation. And it was a very, it was a concerted effort by Roland Daniel and a few others to resurrect the technique, which they labeled preservation. But you know, it's been around for 120 years. You know, Goodale and so on described it in 1899 or something, and just sort of fell out of favor. And Cottle sort of kept it alive in South America, Central America. I mean, South America, Mexico, and in some parts of Europe. But we, yeah, as you mentioned, you go down to Mexico, you hear those guys talk about it. First of all, the first time I heard, this is a funny story. First time I heard someone, I think it was Fausto Lopez Ulloa, talk about letdown rhinoplasty, I thought, why would you want to do a disappointing rhinoplasty? It makes no sense. Why would you call it that? And why are you calling it letdown? And I realized what they're doing. I thought that is crazy. That is just absolutely crazy. And for 10 years of watching these guys do this, you know, talk about it. And I think a couple things really revolutionized it. I think Olivier Gerbaud and the whole idea of using piezo with full open dissection of the entire periosteum was so against everything that we've taught in papers you and I have written on osteotomies. That was a big leap for me about 4 years ago to start doing that. And then the next logical step was, well, now that I'm doing that, I can actually see exactly how to let this whole thing down or impact it into the face. And that was, you know, the first time you do that, that really gets you a little bit scared. You know, you have to obviously pick your patients carefully and so on and so forth. But that's how that really came about. I think that, you know, in the US, Orrin Friedman and Gene Kern were the ones doing it really, but they didn't really talk about it too much. At least Orrin didn't. It was really just an opportunity to try something new. And it seems like it really works well. I'm really happy with it. Yeah. And I just wanted to spread the gospel to our people here.
Yeah, it's good. I spent a bunch of time in Portugal with Carlos Neves, and he does stuff. We wrote an article together.
Yeah.
Trying to put me on it. I didn't really do much.
The Vitruvian paper. It's a great paper with Wilson Duis.
Yeah. So yeah. He's Carlos is a superstar, nice guy, and he's a really, really good surgeon. We talked, I'm going to interview him one of these days. When he showed up, he visited me for a while and was kind of a mini fellow for a while. And he was quite younger then, obviously. But the day he showed up, he got a Bell's palsy. So he showed up with half his face paralyzed. And I had to strap on and try to figure some way to call some steroids and stuff in for him because, you know, he didn't have many medical insurance or anything here.
Yeah.
But he got over it. And he's a really, really good guy.
Yeah, I've actually gotten to know Carlos a bit over the last 4 years. He's a great guy. We've gotten to know each other. So he's real nice. He's excellent surgeon. Yeah,
no, he's really. I was over there not too long ago. He's got some really interesting things he does. I love the way he sews the upper lats on. He kind of gives us running suture, kind of back and forth kind of thing, and he's just got a lot of cool little techniques that are nice, you know. And he's good. He's good. Yeah, Charles and Lydia are one of my favorite people. You know, Charles was kind of a fellow. He wasn't kind of a fellow. He was a fellow, but he followed Dean Toriumi. He just showed up and he was going to do skull base, and he was going to work with some guys at the Mason who bailed on him basically. So he switched to facial plastics and stayed with us. And he's never regretted it, I don't think, anyway. But anyway, he's fun. But the preservation stuff, I think you have to pick your patients well. I mean, it's not a. I mean, it's kind of a good thing to say now. It makes that it's popular, but I think it's clearly limited for certain kinds of cases. Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, if you look at Yves Saban, who's been doing it, you know, his whole career, he says, I think 60%, only does it in 60% of patients. So the other half are getting the Joseph. I mean, you have to choose them carefully. He actually wrote a nice paper recently about that.
Let's read it. So you're still carrying on the Cambodia missions? Yes.
Yeah. That's a la Craig, and hats off to Craig for that. And it's just been really great. And I kind of waited till my kids were a little bit older before I started taking off for a couple of weeks from Beth and the kids, and till they were, I think, in middle school or high school, and then I started going, and it's been really fulfilling. It's great. I know you've been going to China for a long time.
Yeah, we've been going back and forth a long time. I'm going to Africa now, Ethiopia mainly. We were supposed to go this summer, but obviously COVID put a kibosh on that. But we'll go back again. It's interesting, in Ethiopia, we work with the plastic surgeons there because the ENT people are pretty much, you know, tubes and tonsil kind of people. Right. But the plastic guys are, you know, they're really good people and they're good surgeons, but they don't know much about rhinoplasty. I mean, they're good on the cleft lips and palates, but obviously, but the noses basically don't get done. So we were supposed to run a cleft rhinoplasty course for him this summer, and we'll do it next summer, I assume, once things calm down. But
Yeah, I mean, I've been trying to, we canceled our mission this January, and then January 2022, we have one booked. But as of right now, when you go to Cambodia, you need a 2-week quarantine.
yeah, that won't work.
Oh,
Yeah, I don't know how quick. None of us know what's going to happen around here. So I mean, it's tough on these missions. I was trying to help Kofi a little bit with what he's doing in Ghana, but it's all again kind of on hold. But it'll come back, and it'll be good. It'll be good.
yeah. What are your thoughts about what's going on with the academy? And have you kept your finger on that pulse and all the stuff that's going on with?
I think well, COVID's made a problem. I don't know how organizations in general are going to really make it with on-site meetings. May never come back the way we've known them, which is kind of sad in a way, because I love the meetings and the exhibits and hanging out with exhibitors and going out with all your friends. And you learn more over wine at night than you did any other way. And I hope they do come back to some way. I guess they will. So what do you see your future doing, Sam? You've done everything you could possibly do, and you're still, by my standards, relatively young. You're just going to more of the same, become more of an administrator, start being
I don't know.
Mr. Nose.
I don't know. I don't know. I started writing a textbook on rhinoplasty. I've been kind of bugged about it for a while, so it's going to be one of my first forays. Actually, it's not the non-Caucasian rhinoplasty book that you're familiar with, that I'm doing with a few others, but it's actually going to be my book, so that'll be fun. I want to put something together that's sort of just shows like my philosophy for doing things. Not that it's anything too original, but I just thought it'd be a good introductory, comprehensive book.
Yeah.
That's the next year. That's going to be the next 12 months. After that, I'm not sure. When I was a resident, I always figured I'd be a chair, and I'm at this age now where all these people are becoming chairs. But I think in the landscape right now, to become a chair, you need to have an R01 or something like that. And I didn't really, I do a lot of clinical research, but I don't have that kind of funding or that cachet in that way. And I haven't really stayed super involved politically with the AAO. But we'll see. I enjoy what I'm doing. Believe me, I've been doing a lot of soul searching also for what I'm going to do for the next 10, 20 years, but thinking about it.
Whatever you do, you'll be successful at it.
I enjoy the administration and organizational parts. I really do. I mean, I think that I could see myself in that role at some point, and I really enjoy mentoring. I've learned that from you, and being a fellowship director, I've really enjoyed seeing my fellows go out there, and I try to support them as much as I can. And I think it'd be fun to mentor an otolaryngology department along, and junior faculty in all specialties. I think that'd be fun. But you also don't really want to move. I really like it here. That's one thing about Palo Alto. All these faculty just stay on as seniors and don't go take chair jobs because it's not bad. It's really a great university, and my kids are both going to graduate from here. And
yeah, it's a beautiful area. You can't beat it. Greg interviewed down there for college, and it's just so beautiful. It's interesting. I was accepted there at Stanford when I was in college, and I went to West Point instead. And it's kind of like I've always looked back and said, "What was wrong with me?"
No, West Point is fantastic. I mean, just think about it. That's amazing. It's really amazing.
Yeah, well, you'll do well whatever you do. I think it is nice to move into administrative stuff as you get older. I mean, it gives you can use your wisdom in a different way. I mean, it's interesting. I think somebody who told me this, maybe Chuck Krause, he said he's talking about head and neck free flap guys. He said free flap surgeons either become eventually cosmetic surgeons or deans. That's the two paths for me.
Yeah.
For Neil.
Yeah, I think it's true. It's true. I'm really surprised that Neil's chugging away the way he is with all those flaps, but more power to him. I'm
surprised you found not surprised, but happy you found a publisher for your rhinoplasty book.
Yeah, Teamy is working on the one book that you know about, and this one's going to be QMP, but they seem really hungry. They're a small publishing group, and they really want to work it out. So we'll see.
QMP's been good. Dean self-published, but didn't he do it with QMP?
Yeah, he did it with QMP.
Yeah. Well, Dean's Dean, so he made it work, but I mean, I don't know how much. I know how much time he spent. I have no idea how much money he spent getting that thing up and running, but hopefully I luckily got a free copy with a nice engraved thing in it, so I was quite happy.
Oh, that's good. That's good. I had to pay for mine. I had to ask him to sign it for me.
That's good.
I mean, really, Wayne, it's just such a great honor to have been your fellow, and it just means a lot to me that you took the time to chat. And again, hats off to you. Raise a glass.
I'll get one in a minute.
I look forward to seeing you in person again soon.
We shall. Okay, thanks, Sam. Bye-bye.